We begin with the briefing from Congressman Mike Waltz, who is joining us this afternoon for a special visit today on WNDB. Good afternoon, Congressman. We trust that you're feeling better from your bout with COVID-19.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mark. We've turned the corner, I think, now. It has been a little bit. We ended up having a bit more and a lot stronger symptoms than initially set on, but my family's healthy and staff and friends, so thank you for asking, and we'll charge ahead. Keep doing good work.
Okay. I trust your daughter is okay as well. Is she okay?
Yes, thank you. Daughter, mother, and again, close associates and staff, all were fine. I was the only one to catch the positive, and I think it was just really running around the district in the run-up to Election Day and trying to engage as many voters as I could.
Yeah, exactly. I figured that exactly what was in play. I want to begin with the possibility for a real positive success story here out of the gate and ask you to tell us how we got back into the running for Space Force in Florida, possibly in Brevard County. I know that you were very concerned, as I think Senator Rubio was, that there just wasn't a lot of transparency in the initial look for sites, and we were left out of it. How did we get back into it?
Yeah, well, with a lot of hard work and a lot of teamwork, but just a quick review for everyone. You know, the Space Force is a new branch of the military, like the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force. That headquarters will be in the Pentagon, but what we're talking about now is the kind of the field headquarters, the four-star general and his staff and commands that will control everything that's going on up in space, Mark, from a military perspective. A year ago when the Space Force was announced, and I was proud to help push that over the finish line, Florida was excluded. Our horse wasn't even allowed to get into the race. And the Air Force immediately selected 6 other locations in California and Colorado and what have you, and the delegation really stepped up. The governor, our senators, myself on the Armed Services Committee, and said, whoa, wait a minute, asked a lot of tough questions and a lot of letters, and now, a year and a half later, the Air Force reversed that initial decision, opened up a national competition. Florida submitted 8 out of 60 around the country, different cities all over Florida and all over the country, and now Brevard County has been is now just been announced as a finalist for 6. The Pentagon leadership will be doing in-person site visits over the next few months and hopes to make a final announcement for the 4-star Space Command by the end of January.
Would that have an economic impact for the region, Congressman?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but it's much broader and bigger than just the amount of kind of uniforms that would be showing up, which would be a little over 1,000. It's the scientists, the engineers, the aerospace companies, the research and development firms that all sprout from that, and kind of the ripple effect that I think will go from the Space Coast up to Daytona and Embry-Riddle and Daytona State, and then over to Orlando and the research and simulation centers. This is really, Mark, all about human capital, high-end jobs, and not just the STEM jobs, but also kind of wrench turning as well. I mean, they're bending steel and making engines and making rockets, and I think that's going to have a ripple effect for the whole state.
Pivoting to the election, Congressman, the president just said this afternoon that he is the victor. We got inquiries from listeners based on an interview that Sidney Powell had with Maria Bartiromo, saying that votes were being counted remotely from Venezuela. Is that true?
Well, I'd like to see and hear more. The association that I've seen that I believe Ms. Powell is making is some common ownership of firm Dominion and Smart Tech with some of George Soros's firms, and then some business ties back into Venezuela. That sounds suspicious. I don't like it, but we need to see some real firm evidence needs to be presented in court and make the case. I am much more encouraged and interested at this point, Mark, to see what's going on in Pennsylvania in terms of the Supreme Court ordered absentee votes that should have been set aside after Election Day, unfair treatment in terms of curing the ballots that happened in some counties and not other counties, which would be a violation of the 14th Amendment. We've seen what's happened in Georgia in terms of, 6,000 votes being found. That's just one state doing an audit, much less if we had other states doing audits. So I still think we have a ways to go. This hasn't been settled. And I think that the Trump campaign is going to make its case and make it forcefully, and I certainly hope they do.
Are you as surprised as I am that Joe Biden, of all people, you would think he would want to rise above everyone and say, hey, let's clear the air on this so we know once and for all? How does he expect to lead with this cloud hanging over his potential administration?
Yeah, that's right. No, I think that's well said, Mark. He should be, every elected official, every American should be pounding the table saying, we need to get this right. This is for all of us, and this is for our republic. But when you see things like what you saw in Michigan, where you have Republican canvassers who there are volunteering, have other lives and jobs saying, wait a minute, the numbers just don't add up, and they haven't added up in the last several elections in terms of the numbers of votes versus the numbers of possible voters coming in. And for them to get harassed and bullied and threatened is just sickening, I think, for our country, with these people just legitimately asking tough questions and getting to the bottom of what's going on. So, yeah, I completely agree with you, Mark. That should be coming. Certainly, you're hearing it from me. It should be coming from Biden and everyone else, that we just need to get this right. That's the goal.
With this many questions about an issue so important, I'm kind of surprised that we're not hearing anything about an FBI investigation or CIA or something that would indicate the government's taking the lead on this, taking the reins to get to the bottom of this. Or is that asking too much?
Well, it should be. I mean, what's so difficult when you and I first talked about this right after Election Day is you have to present the evidence. But if you're denied access, like, our observers, Republican observers were denied access, meaningful access. They were allowed in the room, but when you're 20 feet across the room, how do you then gather that evidence? So I think it's going to take some time, but I do think there is some nefariousness going on. In terms of the bigger picture, there is a broader movement, Mark, that erodes voter ID requirements, that is pushing towards mail, that is calling anything that, really kind of clamps down on the validity of the voter and the vote as voter suppression. And that has me concerned because that's kind of creeping in at state legislatures, at the county level, at the local level around the country. It's basically taking California-style voter harvesting more national. And I think that's what you're seeing in some of these inner cities in particular. And that's something that we need to stay very focused on for all elections going forward.
I want to ask you about a public policy issue that the president-elect put out there about forgiving massive student loans. To me, that's not the role of government to forgive these. It is a calculated risk taken on by the borrower. It's unfortunate, but I don't know if the government should be writing off college loans. If anything, if you want to do anything, maybe you lower the interest rate they're paying on the loans. Where's your stand on that issue, by the way? It's dangerous and expensive.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I think it's a moral hazard that only leads to more spending, more borrowing, and higher costs in these universities. I don't even like the term government forgiveness. That's not government forgiveness. That's taking one person's tax dollar and paying it, over to another. This is a freely entered contract by adults. But the bigger piece for me, Mark, is that I think it just pours fuel on the fire of out-of-control costs in our university system. And just continuing to throw more and more money on that is only going to pass the debt on through taxpayers rather than through individual borrowers. And it's unfair to the hardworking people who did work hard, pay off their loans. A lot of them worked during college and really kind of bust their butts to do the right thing. And then to see all of these others just get it wiped away is just incredibly unfair, and it's not something I support.
And I also have to wonder, I'm not pointing to any college in particular, but there are some higher education facilities, Congressman, that are nothing more than diploma mills. And they push this opportunity on people, whether suspecting it to be wrong or not, but they promise opportunities if they go to their school. They'll get this much money. They come out of school, there is no job for them. Do they bear any responsibility in perhaps misleading the students?
Well, I mean, this is what you're describing. Is the kind of go get your 4-year degree in basket weaving or what have you, and you're just not truly prepared. Maybe interesting, maybe a lot of fun, really expensive, but you're not necessarily prepared for the modern workplace. And that's why you and I talked a lot about focusing on STEM, on apprenticeships, on learning trades and skills, making those kind of cool again at the Thanksgiving table, because there's a real need in our manufacturers. There's a real need in our tech sector. And that doesn't mean you have to have a 4-year degree from an Ivy League university in medieval European studies, right? I mean, there's a place for that, but that doesn't support the workforce of the future. And so I'm gearing from a public policy standpoint every incentive I can to the latter into those STEM fields, feeding right back into the Space Command, the new space economy, and things that really prepare not just individuals, but our workforce for the future.
Finally, this is a bit dicey, and I'm not sure where the right answer is. The president has refrained from allowing the president-elect, presumed president-elect, to get these briefings, these security briefings. I don't know if he was getting briefings during the campaign or not, but he's not getting them now. Is President Trump on the right track? Do you think that it's correct for him not to have Biden with these briefings now?
Honestly, Mark, I don't see the hullabaloo over it. As a presidential candidate, you start to receive briefings. If he continues to get the briefings, that's fine. At the end of the day, back to where we started, we need to press the case in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Georgia. We need to press the case of how this election was run. And that's what I hope the president and his team are 100% focused on. If Biden gets a briefing about the Russians or Chinese or what have you, here nor there to me, go ahead and give them the briefings. I want to settle this election, not just for this president, but for all of us, because if we allow some of these trends to continue, this ballot harvesting and no voter ID and blasting ballots out like junk mail to unkept voter rolls, that is a fundamental problem from our republic, much better than who's receiving, or much bigger than who's receiving what briefings.
Okay, and my exit question is this. The longer this goes on, do you have any concerns that this causes a void, at least in appearance, to the rest of the world as to who's running the show? I like one president at a time, but Biden makes speeches and gets so much airtime. I wonder if it's confusing to our allies as well as our enemies.
No, I think, look, I think it's crystal clear. We have one president until January 20th. He has his finger on the button and on the National Command Authority. The National Command Authority is very clear, and our allies and adversaries should be very clear. So, look, Mark, we have this system will play out. I think there's some fundamental flaws in the system we need to expose and talk about as a country. But at the end of the day, the states will certify the vote. And if we have a dispute on those certifications, it comes to the House of Representatives. And I think we should be confident, and our enemies absolutely should hear loud and clear that don't try it. This isn't the time.
Congressman Mike Waltz joining us live today on WNDB. Continued progress in your health and a very blessed Thanksgiving to your family, Congressman. Thanks for giving us time today.
Thank you to everybody, and do have a safe and healthy and blessed Thanksgiving. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye, sir.